of all women experience false positive mammogram results after a decade of annual screenings. That's according to some new research from UC Davis. The study's authors say women who undergo mammograms every other year face a lower chance of seeing a false positive result. Older women are also less likely to get a false positive. March is Colon Cancer Awareness Month, and according to the American Cancer Society, by age 45, you are urged to get a yearly screening, and it's important at any age to know the signs and symptoms. My next guest knows a lot about colon cancer. Longtime Detroit news anchor Christy McDonald sadly lost her husband, Jamie Samuelson, to the disease. He was diagnosed at age 47. Christy's joining us along with Dr. Karen Knudsen, the CEO of the American Cancer Society. Ladies, thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it. And I'm going to start with you, Christy. For those of us who did not have the pleasure of ever meeting your husband, Jamie, sort of take us back to the beginning of his journey. Age 47, it sounds like he was the epitome of health.
He was, and he would laugh at me if I told you, Heather, that he was a CrossFitter. He took his health very seriously. He loved to exercise and run with our 3 children. And it really was a shock. It came out of the blue. It was December of 2018 when he had what we thought was a bout of food poisoning, really. And he wasn't feeling very well, but he was slightly pale. So we ended up going to the doctor, and they ran some blood tests, and he was anemic. And that was kind of a red flag. And so they had him do a colonoscopy, even though he wasn't even 50 yet. And 3 weeks later, we found out that not only did they find cancer in that colonoscopy, but that cancer had already started to spread. So it was a shock to us.
Yeah, I can't imagine. He went through his journey, it sounds like mostly private, until the very end. He was forthcoming with the viewers, as he was a longtime sports anchor in the area. And at the very end, in fact, his last day speaking to the viewers and the listeners on the radio, he told everybody to go get screened. Was he able to do that at age 45, or what was the family plan as far as that was concerned for him? It probably wasn't on your radar, because I know it's not on mine.
It wasn't on our radar because we always thought 50 was the gold standard, and we'd get there someday. But we had always taken our health very seriously and always had our checkups, and we're in touch with our primary care physician. And it was one of those things that when Jamie got on the radio and told people that he had been battling colorectal cancer for 19 months and he passed away 6 days later, it was a message, though, that has resonated throughout Detroit and then through his friends who are also in California, because he's originally from California in the Bay Area, and also his college friends also in the Midwest. So it's one of those messages we continue to talk about in his memory. 45 is the new 50, and get to know what's happening in your body and talk to your doctor and get a plan in place.
Well, thank you for being brave and continuing to share his story and that message. Dr. Karen Knudsen, the CEO of the American Cancer Society, I want to bring you in onto this conversation as well. We talk about Jamie being so young, diagnosed at 47, but sadly we are seeing this disease in people even in their 20s.
So unfortunately, this is exactly what we're concerned about. As we watch the trends for colorectal cancer, what we've noticed is a decrease in adults over 50 and an increase since the early 2000s of those that are under 50 years old. This is why several years ago, using evidence, we changed the recommended guideline to have your first colonoscopy at age 45. So we cannot emphasize enough the importance of every American understanding what is their right screening plan, especially for colorectal cancer.
And as Christy was mentioning, Jamie's early symptoms included what felt like food poisoning. What are some of the other early signs and symptoms that people should not ignore?
Certainly bleeding, gastrointestinal bleeding is a major issue, pain, discomfort. But as Christy said, knowing your own body and understanding that something doesn't feel right is the right time to consult your physician and ask whether or not it's time for you to be screened. It's also the case that to understand your family history can help in that conversation, whether you have a known genetic risk of cancer or a family history of colorectal cancer will be an important thing to consider as screening plans are developed per person.
Yeah, such important information. And I went through your website, and I'm going to encourage other people to do the same if you have any concerns about this. Dr. Karen Knudsen from the American Cancer Society, thank you. Christy, we only have about 10 seconds here, but I want to leave you with the final word. This is not an embarrassing conversation, and it's time that people start having it with their doctors.
It's not an embarrassing conversation. Make sure you tell 5 friends who tell 5 more friends. 45 is the new screening age. Don't wait, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Be in touch with your body. Know your family history.
Well, my heart goes out to you as you're raising 3 teenagers now. And in Jamie's memory, I'm going to encourage every one of our viewers right now to have that conversation and to get that screening. Ladies, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.